So, as the slide says, I'm Steve, I'm with Team Similarly Geeky, and we've been using Apifonica to demonstrate the API and messaging. So, we created two hacks. The first one was to create a Node.js library for Apifonica. This one is currently live on NPM, as you see here. There's a few things about this to point out. Because Apifonica itself has two different numbers, one of them for text and one for speech, we actually have two ways of using the number. But we do include the majority of the basic functionality, so ability to send text messages, ability to receive the details about a text message, as well as the call history. So we can place calls with this API, we can process the calls, we can buy numbers from Apifonica with this API, and it works quite well. And it is what we've used to create the second of our hacks. So the second hack we call Roam. We actually started with the idea of Bob-a-Job. On the surface, it's a standard vendor system, but it's unequal. You see, in a normal vendor platform such as eBay, you've got someone who wants to sell a lawnmower, and on the other hand, you've got someone that wants to buy a lawnmower. They both know eBay, they've both got PayPal, they're both computer literate, there's no problem. But with the Bob-a-Job idea, things actually change slightly. The two sides are unequal. The person who needs their lawn mowing might not actually have a computer. They might not be computer literate. The person who is happy to go out and do the lawn mowing might not like the phone. They might live on email. They might be a millennial, for example, who is focused purely on text messages, on Slack, and these sort of technologies. So the two people are imbalanced. And this creates an interesting problem. But it was then this problem that reminded me of a real-world problem that I have. I work in an office. I mean, no, that's not the actual problem. I mean, I work in an office like Alcatraz. But there are three important differences between my office and Alcatraz. For a start, people actually want to go to Alcatraz. There is documented evidence that 3 people have escaped from Alcatraz, and you can get a mobile phone signal in Alcatraz. And it's the last one that's important. Because if anyone wants to contact me between the hours of, say, 9 and 5, you can't phone me. I can't get a signal. So if you want to contact me between those hours, it's basically Slack or email, but just not mobile. It's the same problem as Bob-a-Job. The two sides are not equal. So if you're trying to contact me in an emergency during office hours, you can't. So this is the solution we came up using Apifonica and the project Roam. So what we did is we created a phone number using Apifonica. See a standard thing. We'll show it here, for example. We set up an application with an endpoint so that anyone that calls me or texts me goes through to our software, which is running in Node. We've written the library for it, so the information will come up here. We also created a calendar. This is a Google Calendar here. And here we say between 7 and 9, you can contact me via mobile. Between 9:30 and 5:30, 6:30, probably best to use Slack, and then after that, use the voice. We then wrote a series of communication conduits that route the message that is sent via SMS, for example, to Slack. So, Lily, if you were to send me a text message now, for example, this text message goes to the Apifonica system. The Apifonica system will then call our application. So when it arrives, it should arrive here and say incoming SMS. It then sends a message to my account via Slack. And if you can see on the top of the screen, the little red dot has appeared, showing that the message has come to Slack. And there we go, hello, sent from Lily's phone. So we're receiving messages and we're able to process them. We could add extra processing by adding translate or something. But the messages come from Lily via text through Apifonica into Slack. We can also send the messages back if we like. But if we change the calendar, we can say, well, don't send it to Slack, for example, we could send it to email. So let's change that to email personal. And then if we send another message, for example, the message doesn't need to come from SMS, it can come from Slack, for example. So if you were sending a message via Slack, it will do exactly the same thing as it did before. It will come into our application. We can see it's come in here, and then the message will toddle off to our email, which is over here. And there we go, TADHack bot. What channel are you on now? You'll also notice the phone beeped. That's an indication that it has received that message. But there's no reason why we can't use the virtual Apifonica number to route to my real number. So again, it's simply changing the calendar to say, well, I'm now accessible on my mobile. So if I change that, any message that comes in, whether it's from an SMS text message, whether it's from an email or from a Slack channel, the output goes through Apifonica, through to our application. The message will come up here when it arrives. There it is. It sends, I'm sending it out via SMS. That then calls back to the Apifonica API. It then gets it and passes it onto the phone, which I may be able to show you here. Let me open the phone. Yeah, and it's come from Slack. It's down the bottom. You probably may or may not be able to see that. So we also created a little Sigfox thing. So this is an Arduino, basically. It's got a radio transmitter on it. And we have another one of these which is wired up to 2 buttons. So when one of the buttons is pressed, it does exactly the same as all the other APIs does, which is to say it goes through to the app, which comes through here. You have been summoned by Lily, and that then sends the message on to the phone or the email or anything else that you have connected, which is the essence of the hack. It's a communication. It's almost like reinventing Matrix to a certain degree. So by using the Apifonica number, I can actually give out that virtual number, but in reality I will still get the message wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, over whichever communication protocol is more appropriate for where I am at the time. But if instead of putting my number into the calendar, I put other people and I treated the calendar as a schedule, we've accidentally added the Bob a Job problem. So instead of saying you can contact me via SMS, I said actually you should be calling Jake now, for example. So someone that needs a garden mowing, they call the Apifonica number. It then looks at the calendar and says actually Jake is available right now. It will then phone Jake to say there is someone here that would like their lawn mowing. And it's a very simple change to make. It just changes the way that you use the calendar rather than the way that the technology is. So we kind of accidentally solved that problem as well. But then I changed some code. So the code I changed was this, which reads the summary of the calendar, and it splits the message up to say, are you sending it over SMS? And if you're sending it via SMS, which phone would you like it to go to this, which actually splits it by commas. So instead of having one entry into the field, such as SMS mobile, you can also say, well, I also want it to go to voice mobile, for example. Or I also want it to go to email personal. So it actually sends the message to all 3. Now, Apifonica doesn't actually have a text-to-speech API, but we did find a third-party library that would do it for us. So we generate an MP3 from the text that's been sent to us. We then pass that MP3 back to Apifonica when they ask for an XML. We give them that MP3 file so that the text can actually be read out via our phone. If you want to send another message now, we should see some more messages come through. I could also set Slack on here as well, actually. So if I should go back to terminal. Okay, there's the phone. I don't know if you can hear. Maybe not. But there is a MP3 which is generated. In fact, I can probably play the MP3 directly if we go here. There we go, that one.
Multi-send from Slack.
Not particularly great, but it was a text-to-speech API that we could find. That's the MP3 that gets sent down through voice to the phone when that rings. So, what else? And of course, it comes out in Slack as well. And here's the email that was also sent, multi-send from Slack. So that's essentially our hack. There's no reason why you can't extend the application. So although I'm sending it to 3 or 4 of my endpoint. I'm sending it to my phone, my email, my Slack. You could actually say, if there's a village in Africa that doesn't get teachers very often, the teacher could send a message to the system, and this will then send a message on to 20 different kids in that area saying, I'm going to be in your town on Wednesday for an English lesson. Come along to the town hall and you'll be taught English. There's a lot of other opportunities for this. I mean, saying it's going to solve education crisis in Africa is a little grandiose, but the idea is still there. Using open telecoms, using programmable telecoms, gives us the ability to do this. It's pretty similar to what's available on WhatsApp. It's similar to what Matrix is doing. But when SMS is the major comms platform, it means that you don't need big PCs, you don't need all the infrastructure that we take for granted. And like Bobajob, Africa, or even my office, or even Alcatraz, this actually does provide an end-to-end solution for sending messages from anywhere to anywhere that I hope will be slightly useful.